Welcome to Shelf Help, a channel dedicated to talking to the void about whatever book I happen to be reading. I am your host, the reader. The following review will contain spoilers. I always end my review with, I know everyone's mileage will vary, and that is because what any given person wants or gets out of any given book greatly depends on a number of factors, including, but not limited to, life experience, events, mood, and other books read. As a general rule, I don't make direct comparisons between books, unless it's something like 50 Shades and Twilight, where one was inspired by the other. However, I came to The King of Battle and Blood from one of those "if you like, then you will like" articles. In this case, the book it was supposed to be like was From Blood and Ash. I really like From Blood and Ash. It is one of my comfort reads. So another series to get me between books would be wonderful. Dear readers, I feel betrayed. The only similarities between these two books are vampires and, I'd say romance, but that feels like a stretch. From Blood and Ash is 600 pages for just the first book. There are currently 4, with a 5th coming out this month, and 2 of the 3 series prequels. We get a kiss and a small pinch of spice early, but it doesn't get spicy until almost the end of the first book. There is a lot of world and character building interspersed with flirting. We learn about Poppy being both privileged and powerless, how she risks herself to help and protect others, and the price she pays for just being what she is. By contrast, King of Battle and Blood is less than 400 pages, and most of what we learn about the characters is in the last 50-ish pages. World building exists, but it's comparatively small. We learn little of Lara, or the other 9 houses, or Revaka. No towns are visited, well, none with living people, and the minor characters we do meet are shuffled off quickly, never to be seen again. Isolde has 2 settings, horny and angry, usually both at once. She is the Princess of Lara, one of the 9 houses. Her father is king, and her mother is dead, and was from a small island kingdom. She gets her dark complexion from her mother. Her mother's people are the only people of color noted in this book, and they are enslaved. Subtle. Isolde has been sleeping with the captain of the guard, but she finds him boring and too quick-tempered. Also, she needs no man. Isolde wants to be queen in her own right, and rule by her own decree, even though a woman ruling alone has never been done. Which, fair. I'm a big fan of stories where the oppressed rise up and change their world. Who isn't, honestly? But she isn't doing anything except expecting her father to hand the kingdom over because he loves her, and not forcibly marrying her off. Which begs the question, why should he? She does not do anything during the story that shows she would be a good queen. Being stab-happy is not diplomatic, even if the princes deserve it. Hell, for the existential threat Adrian and his vampires present to the 9 houses, no one's showing much interest in diplomacy or cooperation. Isolde's father has decided to surrender instead of fighting a battle he can't win. After Adrian finds Isolde in the woods and tastes her blood, he demands her as his bride as part of the kingdom's surrender. This is a good example of who Isolde is. She is viewing the vampire encampment with her one guard, her ex, Killian. He's being a controlling ass. She decides to ditch him and promptly gets herself in trouble. She openly admits that a human can't fight a vampire and win, but she has trained and she can take care of herself. The fact she loses or nearly loses several times during the story never dims her confidence. This is Isolde's main problem. She really doesn't change or grow. She starts as an overconfident girl boss princess and ends the same way. By contrast, Poppy has lived a very restricted and sheltered life. She has to learn about herself and the world. Isolde learns the truth about her world too, but Adrien has motivations of his own actions is hardly earth-shaking. And this truth does not change her character significantly, even if it changes her magically. The only real change she goes through happens with the totally saw that coming twist at the end. And then we have Adrien, who is no Castile, and may be the dullest romantic lead I've read in a while. He is a vampire king, and is easily conquering the 9 houses. Not that we see any of the actual battles. The wild thing is, he's not in love with Isolde. Not really. Which is kind of evident in the fact that he never bothers to get to know Isolde. She's not a person to him, just a vessel. And that's not what was intended. They're destined for each other, because... It's stupid, but I won't spoil it anyway. There's no romance here. Isolde starts out horny and happy for a good tumble, and Adrien is doing the bare minimum. Poppy and Castile are also destined for each other, but we don't learn that until book 3, or maybe 4. But Adrien just knows that once Isolde gives him her blood, she'll remember and love him back, and fuck him for being right. Okay, technically she loved him before she gave him her blood, but just barely. Most of the story is her waffling about how she feels, and besides how horny he makes her and how good he is in bed. Then again, as I said, it's not like he's trying, because the solution to their problems is literally magic. The appeal of supernatural romance is having a significant other who is superhuman, who can and will rip off limbs, then turn around and be gentle and kind. It is the act of putting in the work, proving that they care and are willing to change. Or burn a kingdom to the ground. Whatever it takes. I think that's what annoys me most about the comparison. Castile has to win Poppy over twice. The second time is harder because he had to overcome lying, kidnapping, and murder. Adrien has no interest in Isolde as a person, and only exists for Isolde to waffle about his hotness and if she loves him. There's no character growth on either end. And Isolde's waffling would be fine if she did it once or twice. But it is every other chapter. Some female vampire or mortal will tell her how good Adrien is in bed, or she has a dream about him being with someone else, and we do the whole thing all over again. Yes, in some bizarro universe where I have been married off to an extremely hot, world-conquering vampire who is apparently madly in love with me for no discernible reason, I too would have complex feelings. But in writing it gets repetitive, retracing the same problem over and over again without making any progress. There was a point where I found myself skimming forward. All that said, I know there are people who will love this book. It's heavy on spice, simple plot, and a predictable conclusion. It just so happens that it hits all of my nerves when it comes to romance, while being compared to one of my favorites because vampires. There's nothing wrong with a simpler, straightforward book. There's nothing wrong with simple stories used to bridge sex scenes. Those can be a lot of fun. But I like the complexity. I like series I can reread and pick up details I missed the first time. See characters in new light with knowledge of their motives. King of Battle and Blood is just spice cake. There are no major battles or political movements. I don't feel like I may have glossed over any important details. I don't feel the need to reread again or see what happens in the next book. I'm going to put this on my third shelf. It's just meh. I may have liked it a bit better if I had not come to it with my expectations set so high, but probably not by much. Isolde is just not particularly interesting, and Adrien isn't trying. The only connection they have is that they make each other hot, and I'm not really given a reason to care about the future or the future of their world. Ultimately, when I read romance, I want romance. I want character interaction that isn't all spice and no sweet. I want stories with stakes that are more than someone getting laid. Thank you for your time. I know everyone's mileage will vary, so feel free to leave your thoughts.